hard, long. Yes. Like, I'll take them all, goddammit. Not on the same session. The stimulus is just wild. You know, the guy's doing this fucking one-arm shit, like, just to here. And I'm like, why don't you go higher? And why don't you use more weight? And they're like this. And you're like, I don't know what you feel at all. I don't feel my hips or my dick coming out. I don't know. Oh my God, bro. That extra 3 inches, let me tell you, all right? It's so big. It's so big. You probably getting pussy right now, big homie. You feel me? Into which you take the proximal edge of skulls, incline variation. You can do eyes, nose, mouth, chin, throat.
Moving to glutes.
Oh yeah.
Which exercises do you think for body parts? Let's start with start on the bottom, calves. Exercises that people should definitely try, or exercises that you recommend most often. Calves are not the most exciting, I guess.
Calves are not the most exciting. Any kind of straight leg calf raise that unloads your spine is probably pretty good. Mm-hmm. So get on the belt squat if you have one. Go step off the ledge, unrack the weight, get the belt going, and go down really low off the ledge, hold for 2 seconds, come up about halfway until it feels easier, and then go back down. And I would do that like myo-rep style or very short rest breaks. I did that yesterday, and like I'm not going to be able to walk most of the rest of the day. It's just like insane soreness for calves. Mm-hmm. So I'd say that's a good idea. If you've been doing seated calf raises with a bent leg, I think you're going to get the first calf gains of your life doing this sort of thing. What's next? Hamstrings. Mm-hmm. A properly executed stiff-legged deadlift is a very rare thing. And a good morning as well. Same movement, really. It's just the bar here. Because a lot of people will do them and they round their back, which unlocks the hips, takes the tension off the hamstrings. They don't go sufficiently low. So I would say a very good, well-executed stiff-legged deadlift can basically mean that we're 2 or 3 sets per hamstring workout. You can get all the stimulus you need, which is really cool. For quadriceps.
Let's talk, what about leg curl? Do you think it's necessary to keep a leg curl movement in there for the short out of the biceps femoris, for example?
So like for beginners and intermediates, absolutely not, because no one's going to be able to tell. Neither are you. You can always start leg curling later in your career and just get like awesome gains for the first time ever. If you want complete muscular development and someone you're going to be stepping on stage and time is a thing you can afford, I would say like, yes, it's a very good idea to do some kind of leg curl. What I typically do is if I train hamstrings twice a week, I will do one day where I do hinges and one day where I do curls. And I think it just checks both boxes really well. I would say it's not the best idea to miss out on either one of those unless you're time constrained, and then just do whichever one fits all of your other goals and preferences better. Right. So if you're like a strength trainer and you want big deadlift and stuff, I would just say at least probably not important for you to be doing many leg curls. But if you're a person who just only cares about aesthetics but you don't have a ton of time, then I would say mostly leg curls versus hinges are better because they're a better stimulus to fatigue ratio in many cases. At least the total systemic and axial fatigue is quite low. They don't take as much time to do, and they technically probably contribute to a more complete development of your hamstring, especially if you do them in a lengthened position, like a seated leg curl with your chest prop forward and stuff like that. Yeah.
For quads, earlier you already mentioned typically higher rep, very deep type squat movements. That's your fave?
Yeah, fave. I would say one of my all-time faves nowadays is a really good belt squat. A good belt squat where you come down all the way and sit for like 2 seconds at the bottom, and you come up 2/3 of the way and come right back down slowly. Do a myo-rep style. So you go very close to failure, lock out your knees, breathe for 3 or 4 seconds, maybe 5 or 10, and then hit it again and again and again. Do like 3 rounds of that. Like it's actually possible to get a very good workout for many people with one set like that. And I think it's the axial fatigue is non-existent because the weight attaches at your hips. The systemic fatigue is quite low because it really just kind of is almost only quads at that point, especially if you sit in such a way that glutes. But if you sit with your knees going way over your toes, it also doesn't do your glutes much, a little bit, but not a ton. Also, your glutes leverage against your hips, which leverage to your spine. So if there's a part of your squat where you're going like this, glutes are involved. But if the belt is low on your hips, like glutes don't even really do much for that. It could be all quads or most quads, definitely some glutes. So I would say belt squats are like a huge unlock that I didn't used to do them because I kind of thought they sucked. But when a friend of mine recommended that I do them in a certain way, I tried it. It was really good. I iterated on that and I improved it in my own way. And I was like, okay, this is the best quad exercise, pound for pound, stimulus to fatigue ratio that I've found for myself in a long, long time. So
what about abs? Is there even an exercise that you think most people should do for their abs?
I don't even know if most people should be training their abs. It really just depends on what they want. I like abdominal exercises like I like my women. Hard,
Short.
painful, sure, long.
So which exercise would that be?
Partials. I like my ab exercises to be based on the same principles as all other exercises. I want them to be a relatively full range of motion with a very long length and component. I want them to be loadable, and I want them to be progressible, and I want them to be repeatable in a certain fashion. So I think actually a well-designed abdominal crunch machine with a selectorized stack is probably one of the best ab exercises you could do. You could also hold weights and do like an inverted bench, 45-degree invert bench. Those are quite good. V-ups are decent. Rollouts, ab wheel rollouts are phenomenal, though they do tax your tricep, long head, and your lats significantly. Not a big deal, but like if you're sore everywhere, you're like, it's just like it's a difficult exercise systemically. But that ability to have the longest length concomitantly present the biggest tension is huge. Ab rollouts are a little bit difficult to progress. They will say if you can do with what I consider very good technique, 20 ab rollouts, you're like, I don't know, we could run you over with a truck and your abs would be fine. But so there you don't really need external load in most cases. But I'd say a good resistance profile crunch machine where you really open up and you really crunch down, and you really control the eccentric and you really crunch down. I mean, I think that's really, really hard to beat. I just like planks and all this fucking shit. I just think it's such a goddamn waste of time for physique and strength people in most cases.
Yeah, I like the having the cable attachments with the rope, putting it over your shoulders, and then like a Bosu ball or any type of ball that you can really crunch over, get a range of motion, and use the cable stack. Because you can do that in almost any gym, and good ab machines are quite a rarity.
Quite a rare.
Gyms.
What do you do with your feet?
Just put them on the ground. If you get the right angles, it usually works up to pretty high weights.
Okay.
But after body weight, yeah, you would need some something to put your feet firmly in place.
Yeah. I have quite strong abs and I have very short legs. So I just flip backwards.
Right.
But if you get a bench, you put your feet under or a couple of plates, then that can be an excellent exercise for pretty much everybody.
Yeah. For most people, I think if you dip yourself way to the front of the ball, the leverage is usually all right, up to around body weight. After that, you do start flipping over a lot.
Sure.
All right. Moving to glutes.
Oh, yeah.
Best booty builder.
I mean, front foot, elevated Smith machine lunges are just really difficult to beat from an experiential perspective. I mean, like you can get IOMs from them, instantaneous onset muscle soreness, where you do one set per leg, you're like, I'm going to cramp if I move. I got to lay down or some shit. So it just
What do you think is up with that, by the way? The insane level of soreness that you get in the glute ham tie-in with those types of exercises.
I think it's because most people just don't do them with a high enough volume and frequency to get used to them. I think it's just a repeated bout effect.
But specifically the location, right? It's like very like glute ham tie-in.
Is that the case? I don't know. For me, it's just the whole glute.
Right. For me, I get like the insane, that's also like the standard bodybuilding lore. There's not really a glute ham tie-in muscle, right? It's just the glutes and the hamstrings.
Correct. Well, I will say, we do have some data to support the idea that longer length tension does hypertrophy you distally more, and that's distal part of the glute, and that's kind of what it is. So I'd say that's probably something to do with it, but like hip thrusts are fine. Hip thrusts suffer from a few theoretical problems, a few practical problems. So, like one is that you have to load a fuckload of weight onto a bar. Another one is that the force curve is just backwards. It's also an isolation exercise. So you just like training glutes by themselves, which is fine if that's what you want. But a lot of times, like, why not train other stuff too? Front foot elevated Smith machine lunges train your quads quite well. They train your adductors really well. And they train your glutes into the moon. And they train your cardio and your ball sack really well too, because fuck, that exercise sucks. And it's embarrassing because you're on the Smith machine with like 10s on each side. And everyone's like, what the hell's wrong with that guy? His legs are huge. Why is he so weak? And you're like, you try this, motherfucker. And I always usually do it after quads. So my quads are cooked anyway. So it really is just 10s on a side. It's kind of embarrassing. But
what do you think is wrong with the force curve on a hip thrust?
It is very difficult at the top. And at the bottom, anyone can lift like 8,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, Beth Contreras might argue that you get probably the highest active mechanical tension in the glutes at the top. So maybe it's a good thing. You'd argue it's too much, probably.
I mean, like, if the force curve was half as extreme, that might be the thing. Also, like, active mechanical tension is nice. Passive mechanical tension also grows muscle. Also, length and tension is so dominant now that it's difficult to say like how much active tension at the top can counter that. Some, but is it net balance a thing? I'll say this is where I'm like just currently pretty much by myself in the evidence-based community with my bullshit proxies like pump and soreness and fucking shit like that. I do think I'm still going to win that debate in the end sometime. The pump literature has been very good to me recently. It correlates quite well with growth, but we'll see how that ends up. But I say like if I do 5 sets of hip thrusts, I get a decent pump. I get a little bit sore and it's novel. I haven't done it before. I'm like, okay, this exercise works. Like, you better imagine doing 5 sets per leg. Front foot elevated lunges for the first time. Like, you won't come back to the gym. Yeah. The raw stimulus magnitude is just incomparable. And so I'd say hip thrusts are very, very excellent, but the best isolation exercise for glutes or near isolation exercise. And a lot of people like competitive aspirations, or they already did enough squats. They don't want their legs any bigger, but they want bigger glutes. Man, hip thrusts are just very difficult to beat. There are a variety of ways to rig them. Whoever makes the following machine first is going to make, I think, a substantial amount of money. Just make a cam leveraged hip thrust machine that makes it very difficult at the bottom, very easy at the top. I will fucking buy one and I will talk about it on the internet and you will sell lots of them. It's just obvious at this point and no one's done it yet. So I would say that is a very, very good way to go. And you don't even have to have some kind of magical construction design. You just have a lever system that's angled properly at the beginning and that's it. So the barbell hip thrust is it just leaves so much to be desired. And if I have to put 6 plates onto something that's on the ground and it's not a deadlift, I'm just not doing it.
Yeah, a lot of people have that. It's not time efficient.
Oh my God.
Yeah. What about Erector Spinae? You think squats and deadlifts, that's all you need? You do isolation work for them?
I mean, like, depends on for what. If you want
bodybuilding.
Bodybuilding, yeah, absolutely. Like, there's probably no reason to train your erectors for bodybuilding. I would say for overall health, I'm increasingly more and more led to believe that dynamic movements for almost every joint are a good idea for preventative measures and for injury prevention, for overall robustness. So I love to do flexion rows of various forms, cable flexion row, dumbbell, barbell, and that's where you actually bend at the spine. Ever since I started doing that, like my spinal health, back health has just been like amazing. And I do like combat sport. And so my back is always in very precarious positions. The thing is, if you're very, very strong, just with a locked in posture and someone unlocks you or you bend down to pick up a cup and you pull something in your back because you're never in spinal flexion. That used to happen to me all the time. I was a decent power lifter and it still happened to me all the time. So I think some spinal flexion and extension is just a good thing. And for hypertrophy, for physique, like rarely. I have really cool, like gnarly, gigantic spinal erectors. So I kind of don't want to lose them and sometimes want to make them bigger just because it's a sweet look. So for vibes, yeah, you can do those. But I think having a spinal erector dedicated like
back extensions.
Yeah. Back extensions are just not a good exercise for so many fucking reasons. They're not loadable very heavily unless you get the barbell out. Then you end up hitting the supports. Like, fuck this. They force curves all wrong because it's very easy at the bottom, very tough at the top, so on and so forth. So I think, and also like, why not train the rest of your back while doing it? So I just say just do a row with the back extension and there's a flexion row. I do love the way cable rows feel with the full flexion, because actually when you're fully flexed at the bottom of a cable row, the angle of pull for your lats is even better. And so it ends up being just like one of the best all-around back exercises that you can do. So I would say that's just not very important. If you're doing bent rows and you're doing stiff-legged deadlifts and stuff, I think you're totally good to go. In squats, your erectors are going to be big and strong. If you have struggled with some back stuff before, I would say starting very light, high rep, and moving up slowly in weight for flexion rows of various kinds, or Jefferson curls is just like one of the best things you can do for your back.
All right. What about lats?
One arm cross by. No, I'm kidding. So for lats, man, every single time I get away from it, every single time I come back to it, just good old pull-ups with any grip. So good, man. They're so goddamn good. Whether you want to do them body weight, whether you want to do them weighted, I would say get your chin to the bar roughly. And then especially in the bottom 2/3, really milk that eccentric. And you're not going to be able to do that many reps. It's kind of embarrassing, but every time I just cannot beat the DOMs I get and the pumps I get from pull-ups with any other back exercise. I've tried them all. Nothing compares. Assisted pull-ups are awesome, but regular pull-ups, man, there's something special about them. And so, that's just for me. Some people do them.
You mean pull-ups or chin-ups? Any grip?
I do not. So I never use the word chin-up ever. I'm not upset that you used it. I'm a little upset.
Convention is like, it's a chin up this way, pull up this way.
Yeah, it was just like, well, the exercise to me is called pull up.
Yeah, you pull yourself up.
Correct. I could even say it's just called a chin up. And then it's various grips, because there's neutral grip, overhand grip, wide grip, underhand, and so on and so forth. There's also like 45 angle grip, which feels quite nice for many people. So I would say like there's just no wrong answer on grips. It's whatever feels nice to you. And a lot of the right answers is variation, like if someone's like, hey, like, do you like, blonde girls or brunettes or blah, 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 you'd be like, yes. Like, I'll take them all, God damn it. Not on the same session, because, tend to get upset at each other if they're in the same bed.
What about rear delts? You do it with your back training? Do you need to isolate them?
Yeah, you need to isolate them if your rear delts are lagging, and you can do some rear delt work that's quite good. I would actually say one of my favorite exercises for rear delts is the Smith machine. You could do this with a barbell too, in a rack. The Smith machine inverted row. So you get the Smith machine, you plank your body, and you pull yourself, and pulling height can be here, it can be here, it can be here, it can be here. Somewhere between here and here is where most people will find, especially if they bring their arms back. Dude, I get a fucking rear delt pump from that. I almost never get a rear delt pump from anything. Also, you get a deep tension, high tension at the stretch, easier at the contraction because the angle improves for you. Vectors get easier. And so it's actually like a really good force curve. It also beefs up the rest of your upper back, which is dope. Just spending all of your time on like just rear delts is kind of weird. It's fine. Then, cross body rear delt cable stuff is excellent. I hate the rear delt machine. It almost does nothing for me at all. It ends up being a back exercise. I would just prefer to do the elbows up and out, face pulls against a barbell, the leverage advantage. The TRX, you know what that is? The TRX bands, those are actually excellent for it, because again, they incorporate leverage advantage. And with them, you can start low and pull high, or start high and pull low, whichever way hits your rear delts better. I think that's an excellent exercise. What I generally say to people is I almost always treat rear delts like I treat front delts. I almost never train front delts on purpose. I almost never train rear delts on purpose, because if you do proper full range of motion back training, bro, if you look at an anatomy book and you look at any back exercise, pull-ups, tell me rear delt. If you had a tear, like a fucking avulsion in your rear delt, you could do pull-ups? No fucking way. It'd be the most painful thing in the world. Like, oh shit, it looks like they contribute a very large fraction of the force. And somehow people just forget, right? Like this. Like, well, hold on a sec. What is the function as part of the delts? Do this. And this. And so you're doing like 18 sets of rear delts anyway all the time if you need extra dope. But what I like to do is for my shoulder volume, all of my shoulder volume, almost all of it, I like extra on the side delt, because the side delt doesn't get much from pushing and pulling. And also the side delt has by far the most visual appeal. Like if you have big rear delts, like, yeah, it looks cool. If you have big front delts, it looks strong. If you have big side delts, like, you probably getting pussy right now, big homie. You feel me? You can't bat the pussy away, man. It just keeps following you everywhere.
Yeah, it's funny, even for rehab, there's research that compound exercises, which anything that pulls the elbow back will train the rear delts, are just as effective as all the standard rehab type external rotation and stuff.
Don't even get me started on that shit.
What about traps? Do you isolate those more?
On an as-needed basis. I almost never isolate them. I went through a phase where for like a year and a half, I isolated traps, and they got bigger.
Which ones? Middle, lower, upper?
Upper. So the way I row with all the low angle rowing, like mid traps is just not a problem. And so lower traps definitely not a problem. Upper traps could use more work, but honestly, like the way, if you do a lot of side delt training, especially with dumbbells and machines and crossbody, I mean, like your traps are working.
You actively shrug?
No, but what I do is I try to focus on completing the movement with good execution. And I try to focus to make sure that I can feel it in my side delts, that like the elbow up cue, like pulling with your side delts. But I never, ever, ever try to de-emphasize my traps. And I think that's a critical problem that many people run into, because the overall neural drive you can get into a muscle is going to be limited by your bandwidth mentally of doing 50 other things. It'll be like, okay, do your laterals, focus on your delts, okay. Focus on not using your traps. Okay. Focus on your 2017 tax returns. Think of all that. And what was your first girlfriend's favorite food? You'd be like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing anymore. You're not going to get high neural drive. So what I usually tell people is focus on your side delts and side delt training. Your traps won't take over. They will contribute like they're fucking supposed to. Like when you have people squat, do you tell them focus on your quads or do you tell them don't focus on your glutes? I didn't even know how the fuck to do that. How do you not focus on something? It's fucking insane. And it's a big problem because you end up like using 5 kilos instead of 10 kilos. And then you end up just like, oh, like fucking, the guy's doing this fucking one arm shit, like just to here. And I'm like, why don't you go higher? And why don't you use more weight? And like fucking my traps take over. And I look at their physique. I'm like, what traps, motherfucker? You don't even have any goddamn traps. And here's the really good news. If you are working on your biggest side delts that you can, and you train them normally, your traps will get almost as big or bigger than you've even wanted. And that's amazing because you never have to train your traps. I've literally seen men in the gym, guys that are trying to isolate their delts, like with all this crazy shit to get the traps out, and then they do shrugs later. And I'm just like, did you misunderstand how, like, it just baffles me.
Yep. In general, I think there's a myth in bodybuilding circles that if you get more activity in one muscle group, it must come at the expense of another. And research very clearly shows that's not the case.
Opposite in often cases. Like really strong triceps can push your pecs to go to limits they wouldn't be able to before, because like you can get the concentric up with more triceps than you were supposed to, and then the eccentrics all pecs, and your pecs like, dude, I can't even do this anymore. You can really push a muscle super hard. Do some people have a mind-muscle connection problem with a certain muscle? Yes, but don't worry about the other muscles. Literally, don't think about the other muscles. Think about your pecs. Don't worry about what your triceps are doing. Think about you pushing through your pecs. Then you might get a little bit of better result. But like this other thing's taking over, usually it means you need to focus more on the muscle. Here's another thing. It means your technique might use some work. You imagine someone doing very close grip bench and be like, dude, I just feel it in my triceps. Like, well, no shit, motherfucker. Widen your grip a little bit. Some people like, oh, I'm just getting catty. I don't want to be all negative, but some people like will talk about mind-muscle connection and feeling a muscle, and you'll watch them do an exercise and they're doing this shit, and you're like, dude, shut up. What are you doing? Like, if you've ever seen Jared Feather train, you train like Jared, you get to talk about mind-muscle connection till you're blue in the face. If you don't train like that, at least start training in a way that externally I can tell you're like trying to do something organized. Like guys will be like, man, I don't really feel my back in rows. And you watch them do rows and they're like this. And you're like, I don't know what you feel at all. I don't feel my hips or my dick coming out. I don't know.
By the way, do you like my content? Then you'll love my online PT certification course. Instead of spending 10 years sifting through misinformation and being confused by all the contradictory information on YouTube, in less than 1 year, you'll learn absolutely everything you need to know to transform your physique and, if you're a pro, the results of your clients. My research team and I have compiled quite literally all available information on muscle growth, fat loss, strength development, and health sciences into a practical take-home messages to take your physique to the next level. And we teach the methods that we ourselves actually use as coaches with our clients, ranging from Gen Pop to professional bodybuilders. You'll also get a PT toolkit with calculators, case studies, how-to guides, an exercise library, and hefty discounts to our partners' products and services. Of course, you shouldn't take my word for it. Check out the reviews of our former students in the link below. To my knowledge, we have the highest student satisfaction scores in the market. Okay, back to the video. Speaking of triceps and pecs, what are your favorite exercises for those?
So for the pecs, this is like an exercise most people won't run into, but cambered bar bench presses are just like goated beyond recognition.
For the extra range of motion.
Oh my God, bro. That extra 3 inches, let me tell you, all right? It's so big. It's so big.
But about the bench press now.
Say it again.
We're talking about the bench press now.
Oh, for sure. There's nothing big in my life I would ever say about. It's now 3.5 inches. The stimulus is just wild because like on all the technical grounds, like it's a very stable movement. It's a very loadable movement, and it's a very, it's a movement that's easy to replicate technique wise. And all of a sudden it's a 3 inches extra, insanely difficult eccentric. Mm-hmm. It just blows your pecs into the moon. So I'd say that's great. I would say properly executed incline dumbbell presses into which you take the proximal edge of the dumbbell and you touch it to the proximal edge of your bicep or the distal edge of your front delt. Make sure you hear that correctly. I am talking about touching the dumbbell like 3 inches deeper than your pecs. Because guys do dumbbell press and they stop here. Or sometimes they don't even touch their pecs. And I'm like, every time we have someone on RP, we're training incline dumbbells, we're like, watch this. We teach them the technique. And after one set, they're like, oh, holy shit, my chest. And we're like, yeah, that's like pretty straightforward. So those are good exercises. Deficit push-ups are amazing. For some folks that want overall chest development and respond well, slightly lean forward dips are actually quite good. I love bench presses. I think bench presses are amazing for the chest. And almost everyone, not everyone, some people don't like them, and I totally get it. Almost everyone that doesn't like the bench press or incline press for pecs is almost always doing it wrong. Like they're not arching, they're not retracting, they're not controlling eccentric, they're not pausing. And then of course your fucking shoulders hurt. But I think some of those core movements are just really tough to beat. A good press machine is excellent. One that allows you to go really deep, like an Atlantis machine and things. A lot of you've been around the world training. Have you ever trained on techno gym equipment?
Yeah.
Is there a way we can get the United Nations to like cease and desist like techno gym from like spreading their equipment all around the world? Now that
There's a few manufacturers that are extremely popular for no reason that to me that seems related to the quality of the equipment.
Yes.
Like force curves are terrible. Range of motion is not good. They just don't fit well. The movement, so it feels like a little bit awkward.
Yes. It's like I've done some of their like lat pull down stuff, and I'm like, I've never been able to feel elbow pain in a lat pull down until now, and no lat pump. Like how did you guys do it?
Yeah. They have some okay machines, but
that's one hell of a compliment.
Yeah. What about triceps? You need isolation work?
Yeah. Like if you want the biggest triceps, it would behoove you to do isolation work.
What type? Push downs?
So I love skull crushers. The barbell or Smith machine or inverted skull crusher, all to me the same class of movement, are amazing because they have almost the perfect force curve. Especially if you do inverted skull crushers, because they're easier at the top, way harder at the bottom, and just by leverage. So I think skull crushers are excellent. I think most people who say they don't get a lot out of skull crushers or their elbows hurt are doing the movement in a way that's not good for their body. They experiment with different things. Skull crushers, to me, it begins, so there's a spectrum from close grip bench all the way to overhead behind the neck extension. It's a full spectrum. So you can do incline skulls. You can do skulls to a bench behind you. You can do skulls to your actual skull. You can do eyes, nose, mouth, chin, throat. That's actually one of the best exercises I've ever taught anyone. My arms are slightly too big to do it at this point, but can you guys see it? Yeah, that's right. That's what you heard. If you can do this, it's unbelievable. Get a spotter, but do skull crushers. So unlock at your elbows. I would generally do a false grip because it seems to be easier on the shoulder or elbows in my experience. Unlock, and then in basically a straight line, come down to where you gently touch, like open your chin, gently touch and pause for 1 second with the barbell touching your throat. It's a deficit. Man, it fucks people so bad. And it's just going to annihilate you. And like that class of movement, deep skull crushers, amazing. Push downs are awesome. I don't like rope push downs because like they emphasize the contraction, which is the least useful part of the movement. And the stretch is kind of always like, eh. If you do push downs, I do like people to do the Jared Feather technique where they stay upright. And as they bring the bar up, they pull their elbows back to get a deep stretch. I don't like push downs out front. They're cool. People are like, yeah, but fucking long head. Like, yeah, dope. There's like 18 other ways to train your long head. One of them is just all back movements train your long head quite well, all pulling movements. The other thing is overhead work. I don't do overhead work for my triceps anymore, mostly because I just got big enough to where like you almost never see like national level guys and pro level guys doing overhead and behind neck extensions. You're like, is it just a bro thing? And the reality is they just can't put their arms there anymore. Like it just doesn't work. I used to do them for a long time. Literally just too big. There's too much stuff in the way. I did them for a very long time. Some of the very flexible guys can do it, and it's always a beautiful thing. Unfortunately, it's not in the cards for me, but I did them for years. I did them with a straight bar. I did them with easy bar, standing overhead extensions, where you focus on your elbows can actually flare any way you want. It's a decent cue to flare them forward, at least on the way down. Make sure your elbow is pushed really far ahead of you. So it's like in a squat. You don't want to squat back and down for your quads. You want to squat forward and down. And so in an overhead extension, you actually want your elbows to move forward as you come down as opposed to back. Now back works great too, but if you move them forward and down, you actually get the peak tension exactly at the peak stretch and keep them nice and close, like sets of 15 to 20 easy bar, just annihilation. It's an amazing exercise. Fucks your long head up, fucks every head up. So overhead extensions with cables, with barbells, with easy bars are awesome. So we have skull variations, push down. So actually, to use the better anatomical procedure, push downs, skulls, incline variation, and overhead. I would do some combination of all those rotated through the years. And I would say for most people for full development, have some kind of movement that's either a push down or a skull, one part of the week for triceps or a few of the days. And then one or a few of the days have some kind of overhead movement that you do. And I think it really squares away everything. Dips are excellent, but dips are one of those things like in the RP Hypertrophy app, we have dips as a tricep exercise, but there's some nuance there where because it does hit your chest, it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of more 50-50. There are ways if you plank your body very vertical, and when you're dipping, instead of taking your shoulders and putting them really far forward, which is more chest, you actually, this is really difficult. You break and then you let your elbows slide back, but keeping upright. It ends up making like this arm angle at the bottom, and it's fucking brutal. You're like, oh, I can do 10 dips. Like everyone's looking at you at the gym like, this guy's an idiot. Regular dips, you could put 225 on and go for forever. Those kinds of dips where you really extend your elbow out, phenomenal for triceps. What I like to do is, for many people who get quite strong, do like 5 sets of overhead extensions or push downs or skulls, and then go do 4 or 5 sets of dips. Holy shit. Like you're going to do sets of 5 to 10 dips, and every set is going to be like your muscles just burning alive, and it's all really good.
And then finally, the muscle that all the bros have been waiting for, the guns, biceps.
We did chest already, didn't we? I'm an idiot. The biceps. So like at this point, I've become like a trillionaire spoiled bicep exercise enthusiast, to where like if you pick me up in a Mercedes and it's not a Rolls Royce, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, sir, I'm waiting for my vehicle. And you're like, I am the vehicle. I'm like, no, there's been a misunderstanding. I never set my foot in one of these gaudy Mercedes. So like barbell curls and shit, cable curls, like they're dope, and they work, they're effective, so they're great. Feel free to use them. But once you've tasted the nectar of incline curls with a very deep incline, lying curls on a bench, or probably my favorite all-time bicep exercise. I'm not saying it's the best, it's just I love it. Free motion behind the back curls. So they're really Bayesian curls, but with 2 arms at a time. And just basically like the attachments, you step forward and you get the supports to basically be orthogonal to you here, so that the cable is pulling back exactly at the bottom. Here, you go really far behind your back. I actually did the line curls yesterday. My biceps are sore as fuck. And you pull really far back, and then you come up and curl. At the very top here, it's super easy, which is exactly what you want. And you can back up, rest for a second, keep going with myo reps. Easy to set up, easy to warm up for. I mean, it's just like God's exercise for biceps. And it fucking looks lame, but God damn does it screw you up in the best possible way. And because it pulls your elbows back for you and everything, it's actually, I think, amazing for shoulder health and elbow health, because it really stretches the dog shit out of everything. So that, if you don't have one of those free motion machines, I would say doing dumbbell curls. So lay down on a bench and then take dumbbells, come out here, go all the way and up and down. Phenomenal, because the lengthened situation is amazing. The stretch situation is amazing. And all of a sudden, it's just a great movement and very easy to do myo reps with. It's not systemically fatiguing. That's another thing. You lie down and do bicep curls. You can do that until you're blue in the face. Like when you get strong enough, standing barbell curls are kind of annoying, because like, I don't know, do you get like, my back gets tired from doing standing barbell curls pretty heavy. Just like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of barbell curls in general.
Which is a backwards force curve for hypertrophy. So
you don't get full range of motion. You can, if you push your elbows forwards, it's a little bit better, but then you actually do feel your core a lot with heavy weights.
Yes, Jared does the Jerry curl like that. But also, like, yes, now you get the length and tension, but you're no longer getting the stretch, because you're actually getting less stretch. And so it's kind of like you can rig curls to be good, or you can do lion curls or behind the back curls and just get like amazing results. Yeah.
Mike Israetel, everyone.